Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody? Happy Monday morning. Skip is here and Benj. Luke is here. Liv's here. Alina's here. Good morning. It's Monday morning. We should be in our classroom, right? Working on stuff, but that's okay. We are here and I'm excited to I'm excited to be here with you guys. Skip's excited to be here. He can't wait. So I have a challenge for you guys. I don't know if you saw it on Class Dojo, but I'm stealing this idea from Ross. They had a really cool idea. My daughter's middle school, they are making posters and they have the words "stay home" on them, and then they're doing pictures and ideas of things that you can do while you're at home. And then they have the hashtag Houston Strong, but I want to have the hashtag Grattan Strong. Huh, Benj? Right? So it looks like this. Stay at home. All that information. I have posted it on. I posted it on Class Dojo, so all the information is there. How are you guys doing? Benj, you want to come say hi? No? He's not feeling it today. How are you guys doing? How was your first weekend in quarantine? I hope you guys are staying healthy and not driving your parents crazy or your siblings crazy. Luke, make sure you tell Lauren and Liv hi and your mom. I hope that you're not driving them crazy. How are we doing? Oh, there's Aberdeen. Hi, Aberdeen. How are you? Alina, do you have your tea ready? What do you think? Dude, this stinking thing. So these stories on Class Dojo have not been loading. I've been posting them and then they don't load for some reason. Oh, good. Alina has her tea ready, you guys. Aberdeen, what's new with you? Anything? No? Skippy's really excited. Next couple of chapters in our book. Can one of you guys go on and see if you can see my post on Class Dojo? Will someone go on? It's on there, but the video's not loading. I don't know. What do you think, Skip? I don't know. So if I need to do it again after we get done here, then I will. Oh, Luke can. Okay, very good. So, my side of the mountain. Come say hi to everybody. Oh, hi. Benji's here, everybody. His poor haircut got canceled. He was supposed to get a haircut on Saturday, so he is fluffy. He's probably going to be a giant snowball after this whole quarantine thing. Happy inch. Oh my goodness. Okay, so where we had left off is that Sam learned how to make fire, and so we had a first good meal, and then the next morning woke up and had some mussels, and then he was walking around in the forest, and he had a really good idea for his house. Does anyone remember what he was walking around and where he was going to build his house? Anyone? Benj, do you remember? No? Skip, do you remember? They don't remember. Who remembers? The video is not there. Okay, I'm going to have to redo it then because it's not showing up. It's coming up like a... See, my other ones are there. Well, yeah, Aberdeen. So he was walking around on the farm, right? But there was something else. Yes, live. Yes. And he was walking around the big hemlock forest, right? In the trees. Do you remember all that? Okay. This is like glaring a little bit. Okay. Oh, we unplugged the cord. It's probably not good. There we go. Okay. Are you gonna scooch over or what? Okay, sorry, man. All right, you guys ready? Because he said, standing before the biggest and the oldest and the most king-like of them all, I suddenly had an idea. Okay, so now he's trying to find a house in which to live in. Right, Benj? Come on, make yourself comfy. There you go. Okay. Are you gonna read now? Okay, you guys, Benji's gonna read. No? Okay, next chapter. This is about the old tree. I knew enough about the Catskill Mountains to know that when the summer came, they were covered with people. Although great-grandfather's farm was somewhat remote, still hikers and campers and hunters and fishermen were sure to wander across it. Therefore, I wanted a house that could not be seen. People would want to take me back where I belonged if they found me. I looked at that tree. Somehow I knew it was home, but I was not quite sure how it was home. The limbs were high and not right for a treehouse. I could build a bark extension around it, but that would look silly. Slowly I circled the great trunk. Halfway around, the whole plan became perfectly obvious. To the west, between the two flanges of the tree that spread out to be roots, were a cavity. The heart of the tree was rotting away. I scraped at it with my hands. Old, rotten, insect-ridden dust came tumbling out. I dug on and on, using my axe from time to time as my excitement grew. So imagine he is, these hemlock trees were 6 feet plus in diameter. And diameter is all the way across the width of the tree. So my wingspan is just under 6 feet. So this tree was, pretty big. And it was probably more like 8.5, 9 feet in diameter. So it's a pretty big tree. Right, Skip? Okay. With much of the old rot out, I could crawl in the tree and sit cross-legged. Inside, I felt as cozy as a turtle in its shell. I chopped and chopped until I was hungry and exhausted. I was now in the hard, good wood, and chopping it out was work. I was afraid December would come before I got a hole big enough to lie in. So remember when he left, it was May. Okay? So, and he said it was still cold enough in the Catskill Mountains to where he needed a fire at night and in the morning. Okay? So I sat down to think. Those first days, I just never planned right. I had the beginnings of a home, but not a bite to eat. And I had worked so hard that I could hardly move forward to find that bite. Furthermore, it was discouraging to feed that body of mine. It was never satisfied, and gathering food for it took time and got hungrier. I bet your parents are all feeling that way, right? That you guys are like endless, bottomless pits, and you guys snack all day, and your parents are like, go play, right? You keep wanting snacks, and you get hungry, but you're not that hungry, so you just have a snack, and then you eat chips and yogurt and fruit, and yeah, I know. My daughter's the same way. Trying to get a place to rest it took time, and it got more tired, and I really felt I was going in circles and wondered how primitive man ever had enough time and energy to stop hunting food and start thinking about fire and tools. I left the tree and went across the meadow looking for food. I plunged into the woods beyond, and there I discovered the gorge and the white cascade splashing down the black rocks into the pool below. I was hot and dirty. I scrambled down the rocks and slipped into the pool. It was so cold, I yelled. But when I came out on the bank and put on my 2 pairs of trousers and 3 sweaters, which I thought was a better way to carry clothes than in a pack, I tingled and burned and felt coltish. So instead of carrying everything in a bag, he wears it in layers. So he has 2 pairs of pants on and 3 sweaters. I mean, I don't know. Would you guys do that, or would you guys carry it in a pack? Luke might. Let's be real. Luke might wear 14 layers, but I don't know. I feel like I would probably want to carry it maybe in a backpack with some other things. Maybe it would be restrictive to have. See, I knew Luke would say that he would. I don't know if it. I just don't know if 2 pairs of pants seems like it would be hard to move around in. Yeah. See, Liv would do it, and Luke would want to wear 14 layers. Luke, I miss you. I leaped up the bank, slipped, and my face went down in a patch of dogtooth violets. You would know them anywhere after a few looks at the botanical gardens and in colored flower books. Well, 14 layers, right? I know, Alina. Yeah, see, I knew Liv and I are the same. We'd carry it in a bag, right? Luke would put on like 14 layers and he'd have, his hands out like this. I just don't know. I'll have a salad type lunch, I said, as I moved up the steep sides of the ravine. I discovered that as late as it was in the season, the spring beauties were still blooming in the cool pockets of the wood. They are all right raw. That is, if you are as hungry as I was. They taste a little like lima beans. I ate these as I went on hunting food, feeling better and better, until I worked my way back to the meadow where the dandelions were blooming. Funny I hadn't noticed them earlier. Their greens are good, and so are their roots. A little strong and milky, but you get used to it. Yeah, I don't know about. Please don't go outside and start eating weeds, please. Your parents would not be pleased with me. A crow flew into the aspen grove without saying a word. From following them in Central Park, they always have something to say. But this bird was sneaking, obviously trying to be quiet. Birds are good food. Crow is certainly not the best, but I did not know that then, and I launched out to see where it was going. I had a vague plan to try to noose it. What does vague mean? V-A-G-U-E. What does vague mean? Anybody know? Skip, do you know? He says no, he doesn't know. Anybody know what vague means? Oh, wait, I have time. Vague means kind of not really like a detailed plan, very basic, like you don't have a really good idea of what to do. So like a vague idea just means kind of like the basics. And here we go. Okay. Did you just lay down? Benj is crazy. Benji, look at me. Benji. Psst. Benji. Benji. Mm-hmm. So vague just means like a very basic, nothing detailed. Okay. Oh, did you sit down? Okay. This is the kind of thing I wasted time on in those days when time was so important. However, this venture turned out all right because I did not have to noose that bird. I stepped into the woods, looked around, could not see the crow, but noticed a big stick nest in a scrabbly pine. I started to climb the tree, and off flew the crow. What made me keep on climbing in the face of such discouragement, I don't know, but I did, and that noon I had crow eggs and wild salad for lunch. So I don't know. So do you think that you'd be able to, like, a crow egg climb up a tree? I just don't think I could stomach that. Like if I knew it was a chicken or something, I just don't know if I could just climb up a tree and have a random bird egg and yeah, I don't know. At lunch, I also solved the problem of carving out my tree. After a struggle, I made a fire. Then I sewed a big skunk cabbage leaf into a cup with grass strands. I had read that you can boil water in a leaf, and ever since then, I had been very anxious to see if it were true. It seems impossible, but it works. I boiled the eggs in a leaf. The water keeps the leaf wet, and although the top dries up and burns down to the water level, that's as far as the burning goes. I was pleased to see it work. Luke Rock, you literally would go to like a bird's nest, grab an egg, and then cook it and eat it. Like boil it and cook it. I don't believe that. I just don't. I'm gonna ask your mom if you would do it, because I really don't think you would. Then here's what happened. Naturally, all this took a lot of time, and I hadn't gotten very far in my tree. So I was fretting and stamping out the fire when I stopped with my foot in the air. The fire! See, Liv, I know he wouldn't. Oh, Aberdeen said she would if she was starving. I guess that's a good point. If I was starving and that was my only option, then maybe I would. Indians made dugout canoes with fire. They burned them out, an easier and much faster way of getting results. I would try fire in the tree. If I was very careful, perhaps it would work. I ran into the hemlock forest with a burning stick and got a fire going inside the tree. Thinking that I ought to have a bucket of water in case things got out of hand, I looked desperately around me. The water was far across the meadow and down the ravine. This would never do. I began to think the whole inspiration of a home in a tree was no good. I really did have to live near water for cooking and drinking and comfort. I looked sadly at the magnificent hemlock and was about to put the fire out and desert it when I said something to myself. It must have come out of some book. Hemlocks usually grow around mountains, around mountains, streams, and springs. I swirled on my heel. Nothing but boulders around me, but the air was damp. Somewhere, I said, and darted around the rocks, peering and looking and sniffing and going down into pockets and dales. No water. I was coming back, circling wide, when I almost fell in it. 2 sentinel boulders, dripping wet, decorated with flowers, ferns, moss, and weeds. Everything that loved water, guarded a bathtub-sized spring. You pretty thing, I said. I flopped on my stomach and pushed my face in to drink. I opened my eyes. The water was like glass, and in it were little insects with oars. They rowed away from me. Beetles skittered like bullets on the surface or carried a silver bubble of air with them to the bottom. Ha! And then I saw a crayfish. I jumped up, overturned rocks, and found many crayfish. At first, I hesitated to grab them because they can pinch. I gritted my teeth, thought about how much more it hurts to be hungry, and came down upon them. I did get pinched, but I had my dinner, and that was the first time I had planned ahead. Any planning that I did in those early days was such a surprise to me and so successful that I was delighted with even a small plan. I wrapped the crayfish in leaves, stuffed them in my pockets, and went back to burning the tree. Buckets of water, I thought, buckets of water. Where was I going to get a bucket? How did I think even if I found water, I could get it back to the tree? That's how city-fied I was in those days. I had never lived without a bucket before. Scrub buckets, water buckets, and so when a problem came up, I just thought I could run to the kitchen and get a bucket. Well, dirt is as good as water, I said, and ran back to my tree. I can smother the fire with dirt. Days passed working, burning, cutting, gathering food, and each day I cut a notch on an aspen pole that I had stuck in the ground for a calendar. So he made a calendar out of a stick. Like a branch off a tree, and he cut notches in it. So he knew what the date was when he left and ran away from the city, and he's cutting notches in it every day to keep like track. Yeah. The Make a Poster Challenge is now posted on Class Dojo. Thank goodness. I guess it just needed some time. It's the weirdest thing. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. Next chapter. It's entitled, in which I meet one of my own kind and had a terrible time getting away. Do we want to have any predictions on what you think this is about? In which I meet one of my own kind and have a terrible time getting away. Anyone? Skip, what do you think? What do you think? All right. You guys want to guess? Yeah, so he meets another human. And so why do you think he would have a terrible time getting away? Interesting. Luke, what do you think? Hey. Luke, nothing? Come on, Lukey Luke. What do you got? What do you think? Okay. 5 notches into June. So what does that mean? That means he's been there. It's June 5th. So he's been there a month. Questions? Like, where are his parents? Why are his parents not looking for him? Why have they not found him? 5 notches into June, my house was done. I could stand in it, lie down in it, and there was room left over for a stump to sit on. On warm evenings, I would lie on my stomach and look out the door, listen to the frogs and nighthawks, and hope it would storm so I could crawl into my tree and be me. This opportunity didn't come for a long time. It was dry. One morning, I was at the edge of the meadow. I had cut down a small ash tree and was chopping it into lengths of about 18 inches each. This was the beginning of my bed that I was planning to work on after supper every night. With the golden summer upon me, food was much easier to get, and I actually had several hours of free time after supper in which to do other things. I had been eating frogs' legs, turtles, and best of all, an occasional rabbit. My snares and traps were set now. Furthermore, I had a good supply of cattail roots. If you ever eat cattails, be sure to cook them well. Otherwise, the fibers are tough and they take more chewing to get the starchy food from them than they are worth. However, they taste just like potatoes after you've been eating them for a couple of weeks. And to my way of thinking, are extremely good. Where are you going? Are you bored? He's bored. Well, anyway, that summer morning when I was gathering material for a bed, I was singing and chopping and playing a game with a raccoon I had come to know. He had just crawled in a hollow tree and had gone to bed for the day when I came to the meadow. From time to time, I would tap on his tree with my axe. He would hang his sleepy head out and snarl at me, close his eyes, and slide out of sight. Why? Because raccoons are nocturnal. The third time I did this, I knew something was happening in the forest. Instead of closing his eyes, he pricked up his ears and his face became drawn and tense. His eyes were focused on something down the mountain. I stood up and looked. I could see nothing. I squatted down and went back to work. The raccoon dove out of sight. Now, what's got you all excited? I said, and tried once more to see what he had seen. I finished the posts for the bed and was looking around for a bigger ash to fell and make slats for the springs when I nearly jumped out of my shoes. Now, what are you doing up here all alone? It was a human voice. I swung around and stood face to face with a little old lady in a pale blue sunbonnet and loose brown dress. Oh, gosh, I said, don't scare me like that. Say one word at a time until I get used to a human voice. I must have looked frightened because she chuckled, smoothed down the front of her dress, and whispered, "Are you lost?" "Oh, no, ma'am," I stuttered. "Then a little fellow like you should not be all alone way up here on this haunted mountain." "Haunted?" "Yes, indeed. There's an old story says there are little men up here who play ninepins right down in that gorge in the twilight." She peered at me. "Are you one of them?" "Oh, no, no, no," I said. I read that story. It's just make-believe, I laughed, and she puckered her forehead. Well, come on, she said. Make use of yourself and help me fill this basket with strawberries. I hesitated. She meant my strawberry supply. Now get on with you. A boy your age should be doing something worthwhile instead of playing mumbly peg with sticks. Come on, young man. She jogged me out into the meadow. We worked quite a while before we said any more. Frankly, I was wondering how to save my precious, precious strawberries. And may I say, I picked slowly. Every time I dropped one in her basket, I thought how good it would taste. Where do you live? I jumped. It is terribly odd to hear a voice after weeks of listening only to birds and raccoons, and what is more, to hear the voice ask a question like that. I live here, I said. You mean Delhi? Fine, you can walk me home. Nothing I added did any good. She would not be shaken from her belief that I lived in Delhi, so I let that go. We must have reaped every last strawberry before she stood up, put her arm in mine, and escorted me down the mountain. I certainly was not escorting her. Her wiry little arms were like crayfish pincers, and I couldn't have gotten away if I tried. So I walked and listened. She told me all the local and world news, and it was rather pleasant to hear about the National League, an atom bomb test, and a Mr. Riley's three-legged dog that chased her chickens. I know, right? She's super mean, Liv. In the middle of all this chatter, she said, That's the best strawberry patch in the entire Catskill Range. I come up here every spring. For 40 years, I've come to that meadow for my strawberries. It gets harder every year, but there's no jam that can beat the jam from the mountain. I know. I've been around here all my life. Then she went right into the New York Yanks without putting in a period. As I helped her across the stream on big boulders, I heard a cry in the sky. I looked up. Swinging down the valley on long, pointed wings was a large bird. I was struck by the ease and swiftness of its flight. Duck hawk, she said. Nest around here every year. My man used to shoot 'em. He said they killed chickens, but I don't believe it. The only thing that kills chickens is Mr. Riley's three-legged dog. She tipped and teetered as she crossed the rocks, but kept right on talking and stepping as if she knew that no matter what, she would get across. We finally reached the road. I wasn't listening to her very much. I was thinking about the duck hawk. This bird, I was sure, was the peregrine falcon, the king's hunting bird. I will get one. I will train it to hunt for me, I said to myself. Finally, I got the little lady to her brown house at the edge of town. She turned fiercely upon me, and I started back. Where are you going, young man? I stopped. Now I thought, she's going to march me into town. Into town? Well, that's where I'm going to go then, I said to myself. I turned on my heel. I smiled at her and replied, to the library. There we go. That's our 2 chapters, friends. I hope you're liking the story. I love this story, and I love that we get to share it together. Don't forget to work on your posters. The instructions are on Class Dojo, and I can't wait to see. Post a picture. Take a picture of it and post a picture on our stories so we can all see it. Okay? I love you guys. I miss you, and I will check in with you this afternoon. All right? See you later.